It's 1993 in Japan, and the arcade is still king. Street Fighter II is everywhere. Salarymen crowd around cabinets after work, and students queue with Hyakuen. The sound of buttons, animated combatants, and the glow of track screens drift into the warm swells of summer dusk. Japan is entering the lost decade. The bubble economy has already burst, but inside game centers, business is booming. For a few hundred yen, anyone can step into something bigger. Competition, community, and escape. To keep up with demand, arcades are evolving. Floors are getting tighter, games are changing faster. Operators need cabinets that are smaller, cheaper, and flexible, but still unmistakably arcade. That's where this comes in. The Capcom Mini-Cute, a compact, colorful cabinet built for a new kind of arcade, one shaped by fighting games, rapid turnover, and the peak of Japan's coin-op culture. In the West, collectors categorize them as candy cabs, but nobody really knows why. Some insist it's because of the shiny pastel coating, others say it's because the compact cabs were staples of dagashiya, cheap candy shops. The mom-and-pop owners would roll the Capcom Mini-Cutes, which were equipped with wheels, outside onto the side streets to draw customers. That's why they're seen with stickers saying indoor use only. It's kind of like the warning on a box of Q-tips telling you not to use them in your ear canal. That's exactly what they're for, but the company wants to pretend otherwise. Mini-Cutes are rare in the West. ArcadeMuseum.com rates the rarity as 2 on a scale of 100. It's so rare, in fact, that the site suggests that it might be a one-off concept or hoax. Consider the source, however. Closer inspection reveals that the killer list of video games displays the wrong flyer for it. The actual flyer boasts that the Mini-Cute isn't just small, it's not just stylish, it's a high-performance machine with a new kind of feel. Yesteryear's new kind of feel has withered on the vine, fermenting into nostalgic longing. Ever since I knew of its existence, I wanted to own a Capcom Mini-Cute. At the time, I hadn't imagined that I'd live and work in Asia, or that cancer would derail my life and make owning a home practically impossible. So with blind ambition, I bought a fixer-up Mini-Cute and began fixing it up. I broke it down, scoured away the rot, and scabbed the metal over with Bondo. I primed it and delivered it to a number of professional automotive painters after that, and to this day, it has languished in various storage units throughout the years. The arcade cabinet, specifically designed to save space, to be smaller than the smallest arcade cabinets in a country known for its cramped conditions, was still too big for my cancer-constrained ambitions. Now that I think about it, the Mini-Cute was never just an arcade cabinet. For me, it was a heavy metal anchor, meant to moor me home. But this isn't a sad story because making makes me happy. So I thought the best use of my time was to create a Capcom Mini-Cute countercade. I'd shrink the arcade to match the size of my shriveled hopes and dreams. I'd learned a lot from re-engineering these Vuelix countercades. Check out this video. But I was unprepared for some of the more technical fabrication methods this build demanded. Metal reinforcement, plexiglass forming, and PCB design. Frustrated by the cramped interior of the previous cades, I gave thorough consideration to functionality, ease of assembly, and maintenance accessibility for the Mini-Cutes. After I was confident of the prototype's dimensions, I began printing it in ABS. I like to 3D print all my prototypes in ABS because it makes it easy to chop things up and glue them back together with an ABS acetone slurry. A thicker mix works well for minor surface finishing. Though small, the area of the surface that needs finishing is actually quite large compared with other bar tops. Where I was able to spot fill the Vuelixes, the Mini-Cutes required the entire exterior be glazed with putty. I was shocked to learn how toxic this stuff is. Definitely wear gloves and a respirator when working with it. Rather than a premium but plastic satin finish, I opted to replicate the metallic sheen of the originals by finishing with a glossy clear coat. Unfortunately, the resulting specularity belies any and all imperfections, making flawlessly finishing the surface imperative. I redoubled my efforts until I was happy with the results. To reinforce structural components, I embedded aluminum bars into the print, drilling them to allow for mechanical keying and securing them in place with epoxy. While this produced a rigid assembly, the mismatch in thermal expansion between materials caused the paint to crack under cold conditions. Suggest solutions in the comments. An issue I had with the previous countercades was that they require pipe ports accessible from the back and a USB port accessible from the front for the controls. Previously, I had soldered wires straight to the USB test pads on the bottom of the board. That way of doing things, however, runs the risk of ruining the ever-increasingly expensive Pi 5 boards. This time I wanted a safer, more elegant solution and a way to make the arcade build accessible to everyone, whether or not they could micro-solder. With the help of AI, I learned to use KiCad to create PCBs in under 4 hours. I designed a breakout board and sent it off to the sponsor of this video, PCBWay. Speaking of, PCBWay is a custom fabrication site offering PCB creation, CNC machining, 3D printing, injection molding, and full product assembly. They helped me with the creation of this Bjorn Saber Viking case I designed, see this video, and were instrumental in helping me iterate prototypes of the Minicutes USB breakout board. I'm super happy with their work and their continuing sponsorship. Many thanks to PCBWay. The first few iterations failed because the pogo pins were off by literally 0.2 of a millimeter. I was able to use a USB template to design exacting dimensions and mailed away for more boards. I held the pogo pins in place with this contraption you might remember from my Ponagachi videos. I soldered the pins in place. I thought for sure I'd need to chisel away the bases of the pogo pins. Certainly, they had to be shorting. A continuity check revealed that miraculously, they were not. A speck of dust would short them at this point though, so I carefully flowed some superglue in between the contacts and kicked it. It wound up working great. These stickers have their own story. A less obsessed person might have just found scans online and shrunk them down. The problem with that is scans introduce artifacts and shrinking them would wreck the resolution. Raster images are essentially a grid of pixel holding cubbyholes. When you shrink the grid, some colors are muddied together. So I recreated the images as vector art. Artifact-free, mathematically rendered, resolution-independent images. Because the shapes are defined as math, they can be losslessly scaled up and down. That's fine for the shapes, but practically impossible for the text. Fonts, however, can be scaled without loss, if you know what the characters are. Thankfully, AI was able to both translate and transcribe the characters, meaning I could copy and paste them. In some cases, ChatGPT was even able to identify the Japanese font type. At the other end of the helpfulness spectrum, AI lied about having access to Capcom style guides and produced the wrong CMKY values. Suffice to say, getting the side art and the CP overlay to custom print correctly took some doing. The most difficult facet of the fabrication was shaping plexiglass to accommodate the case's curves. I 3D printed forms, heated the plexiglass in an oven, and then sandwiched it between two prints. Unfortunately, the heat dumped into the forms and the print's infill patterns were imparted to the plexi. I experimented with a variety of techniques, including fully surface finishing the forms and affixing metal flashing to act as a heat shield. Nothing worked, and I ruined plexiglass after plexiglass sheet. It got so bad that Amazon actually offered me plexiglass purchases as a subscription service. Eventually, I found the solution in a YouTube comment section: silicone. Layering silicone sheets into the plexiform sandwich solved everything. The final mechanical hurdle was overcome. It was time to move on to the electronicals. Wiring the system required careful planning and execution, crimping and soldering, measuring and routing cables to ensure safe handling of mains voltage. The second cabinet simplifies this considerably. The cabs don't actually talk to each other, and there's no need to buy a second Pi. The second cab is merely an extension of the first, simply housing a second controller and mirrored display. Speaking of, check out the I/O panel of this first cab. I really got lucky with the dimensions here. It features the Ethernet and USB ports, of course, HDMI out. The micro SD card is also accessible here, as well as a button for the fan. Note that the HDMI and MSD panel mounts overlap. It's the only way they'd fit, and it's one less necessary screw and heat set nut insert. Wiring will require its own tutorial video, as will the software side. I chose RetroPie because of the three most viable options: Recalbox, Batocero, and RetroPie. The latter is most open to custom scripting. I hope to add scripts that will allow me to boot into a specific game's attract mode, add jukebox joystick controls, and streamline high score and console game save states. All this and more will be made available through the crowdfunding campaign. Make your own Capcom Minicute inspired countercade with the provided 3D print files. Build it from scratch or buy some of the more difficult to manufacture items: reinforcement bars, formed plexiglass, and the PCB USB breakout boards. Get a digital or physical copy of the Perfect Bound build book. Receive precious files such as the Bill of Materials calculator. Also get video tutorials resplendent with pro tips and tricks that will make your project much easier and mostly fun. Ultimately, this project is an introductory making electronics and Linux course that produces a legendary Candy Cab replica upon completion. But enough of all that. Let's look at the finished project. The Capcom Minicute and this inspired countercade were, like all great pop art, born of limitations. Cramped Japanese arcades produced the original cabinet. A constrained life led me to create the countercade replicas. The Minicute countercades are functional art pieces that evoke a distant place and a better time. I learned a lot making it, and I hope you will too. Thanks for watching.